Beware the silent. The council was in session. All parties were present. The Federation's finest were on guard. There was nothing to stop the proceedings, except the main witness wouldn't speak. They refused to utter a sound. Several telepaths had tried to get into their mind, but after 3 attempts and each one being stretchered out of the main chamber, it was then decided that the only way to get the truth was to use a neural projector. It was brought. The witness said nothing as it was strapped onto their shaved skull, the thin body barely holding its own in the steel-barred box that surrounded it. The thing was fitted, the link connected to each member of the council, as well as to the main screens in the room as well as worldwide. Justice had to be seen to be done properly, and they had done so much damage, so much death, that the only way to show the worlds that were here in council that is, was fair and true. And so the silent began to speak. Really? We've been given permission? But the Garak don't open worlds to us. They use us to terraform, sure, but to actually give us a home? Sure, something about the interstellar rights to the 3 uninhabited planets. We've got a home. At last, somewhere we can put down roots at last. No more strapping muscle stims to the kids because of the low gravity we run at. See, I told you it'd come right for us eventually. The scene changed to a planet. Small domes dotted the surface, happy youngsters playing, dancing in the twin sunset, crops and livestock nearby, all looked perfect till the shadows filled the setting sun. The next image was slaughter, wholesale slaughter, every dome broken, every piece of flesh being loaded onto sharp-edged ships, watching as each single piece of life was taken, and only then did the ships leave. Then the scene changed. A huddled mass of bodies trying to stay warm under a half-repaired dome, whispers of what to do and how to survive being discussed. Then the call for help had been sent. Heard and received, but nothing came. No ships, no messages, just dead air for years. Yet they survived, did what they had to, learned from each other, buried each other, helped with the young. Yet every time the sunsets touched the graves of those they loved, they held hope for help. When the ships came, they hid, all of them. When they came inside their homes, seeing what they had made, they took what they thought was unused, unwanted, left by the dead. They made no sound, for they had learned to be quiet to hunt the game they lived on. Their weapons were primitive but effective. They'd killed every member of the ships, burned them on a pyre, and taken their ships as their own. They'd known how to fly, and their elders had taught them the skills. For everything known was useful at some time. And so they left their world, going out to find the ones who had destroyed their home, taken all for their own gain, even the bodies of their dead to sell to others as trophies or experiments. Beware the silent. And so they left their world, going out to find the ones who had destroyed their home, taken all for their own gain, even the bodies of their dead to sell to others as trophies or experiments. The next memory was a ship coming into dock, its shape all too familiar to some, but they waited for them to dock, hid, waited until they thought it was a dead ship they could salvage. The crew broke up, went looking for spoils. What they found was death in many different ways and places. The face of the captain who'd taken their home was the sight many tried to turn away from, as the memory showed how they had skinned the face of their enemy. Taking each scale off delicately, flensing the flesh so they didn't bleed too much, making it last, watching as the captain's eye slits widened as they punctured the orb, destroying the eye completely before handing off the gabbling prisoner to others who were more than eager to finish the job they had started. Going into their ship, they found a bounty of food, of supplies, and more importantly, who they worked for. The scene showed them using the eye of the captain to open the secure files, and the roster of payments went up across the screen. Several voices were being raised in protest as their governments were shown to be the profiteers of the raiders, deals made for specimens, alive, dead, but the biggest amount was for live young. Seeing the gaze halt on the screen, pulling up the details, getting others to see the accounts, then the silent movement of many getting ready to act. Looking down on blocks of cages, filled with different races, different sizes, different faces, and seeing nothing but pain, suffering, death, and these were the young. Several council members were visibly enraged, sending calls, making sure their own people saw what the witness was displaying. They could not lie. The stream was from their own memories, their own sights. It was defined by the amount of emotion linked to each memory. Any falsehood was discarded. This was the truth, unvarnished and unchanged. Several members gasped when the face of the Secretary for Rehoming Displaced Species came into view. They had been at the facility, and for the first time the witness raised its shaved head and found the face they had seen before in hell. The Secretary found themselves surrounded by the Federation guards, weapons drawn. They weren't taking chances. They all watched as they tried to rescue the young. Being shot at, rescuers falling to the cage floors as more and more troops filed in. Watching as they barely escaped with their lives, limping away in the crafts they had, running before they too were harvested. Finally finding refuge, a small settlement, trading in their ships for supplies, trying to start again, to live free again. But it was for nothing. Recognized by the ships, the call was made, and they alone was waiting for the Federation guards. Thin, worn, tired, knowing their families were hiding, biding their time. Only they would be prisoner. Only they would give the truth to those who needed to see it. Beware the silent. Recognized by the ships, the call was made, and they alone was waiting for the Federation guards. Thin, worn, tired, knowing their families were hiding, biding their time. Only they would be prisoner. Only they would give the truth to those who needed to see it. Watching as they were taken away, a sense of fulfillment entering them as they were taken away from the home they had tried to build again. The screens went blank as the evidence ended, and the cap was removed for their shaven skull. When it was, they held up a hand to the attendant who had it in their hand. "May I speak?" They had the whole attention of the 74 empires and 90 federations gathered in the chambers. The president of the council answered the witness. "Yes, please, speak. You heard our cries for help. You all knew the price of those worlds, yet you let us pay them. We lived free for a while, and that changes you. No longer ship rats for you to use, no longer drifters and travelers who had no roots. You gave us a home, which you then stole with your greed." Their eyes met every single race there and saw the guilt riding in their gazes. You used us because you could, until we were no longer viable. So there became other ways for you to use us and our young. They dropped their head, and a single drop of moisture dropped to the metal cage floor. "We are spread thin, but we are patient. We learned that eons ago when you took us from our original home with promises of a better life out in the stars. What we got was nothing but vacuum and pain. We work hard, but we didn't complain. We were touted as soldiers to solve any problem, a force to threaten other races with, and we did it too well. So you culled us, took out the ones you thought were the biggest threat to you." The face grinned and began to laugh, shaking its bone-racked body as they looked at each member sat there in stunned silence. "You really shouldn't watch our transmissions. They were garbage, just old ideas rerun for the feel of home. You see, you believed it, fell for it, and left what you thought were weaklings, the weakest behind you who you thought would just die off in the cold worlds you'd left us on." Moving themselves closer to the cage bars and stretching their neck almost through the metal cage to the assembled members. "We didn't forget what you did to us, and neither did our offspring, silent, small, compliant, just trying to get by. By now the entire worlds have seen this, and so have my kind. I would have your communicators on if I were you." Several heads dropped, and runners were coming with urgent news that couldn't wait. Several voices were raised as the screens were put on for all to see. Death was rampaging through cities, explosions in factories, spaceports going critical. Several worlds were being quarantined because of an airborne viral attack. Every eye went back to the witness now sat in the metal cage, head raised high as the dark spread of disease ran across their skin, breathing out the deadly toxin to the council chambers that was suddenly locked down for the safety of everyone else on the world. "Beware the silent women, for our memories are long and our vengeance without end." The chamber erupted as members tried to escape, but it was to no avail. Death had come walking in, and with each spoken word had spread the disease. Each word, a death sentence that had flown across the air of the large room. It wasn't quick, it wasn't pleasant, but when it was over, the entire universe knew the price of a silent woman.